Good Friday evening, everyone, and welcome to the Friday edition of FSU Weather. I'm student meteorologist Michael Anand.
And I'm student meteorologist Chris Knoll.
Yeah, and Chris, it was really warm out there. Not as hot as yesterday, but this weekend's going to be pretty toasty, we'll say.
Yeah, this whole week has just been brutal. I'm pretty sure everyone's been sweating the class. I know I have.
Yeah. And the good thing is, at least the humidity is a little bit lower compared to the last few days, especially up in Atlanta. You'll get to see some of the dew points and humidity values up there, really low up there. But it's going to be very hot, but lower humidity. So take or give those two things.
Yeah, it's a dry heat, but it's still going to be hot. Got to make sure you stay hydrated. Got to keep the team hydrated.
Oh, yeah, exactly. It could be... There could be history on the line tomorrow against ULM, University of Louisiana Monroe tomorrow. Could make some weather history, but honestly, that it's going to really continue for the next few days beyond the ULM game. So that's really the heat is the main story.
Yeah. As you were saying, we might actually have a record-setting heat for a football game.
Yeah, we can all
tomorrow.
Yeah, we can all thank this due to Dorian, which actually finally made a U.S. landfall on the Outer Banks, so the tiniest part of the eastern coast you can think of. But it made landfall today, this morning at around 8:30. Now we're going to send it off to the wall with Evan with a look for our overview.
All right.
Hey, thanks guys. Thank you very much. It has been a gorgeous day here today in Tallahassee. Sun drenching us. Absolutely sweating me up throughout my walk today throughout campus. That is for sure. It's been beautiful in 91 degrees, finally starting to cool off a little bit into the evening hours. Getting finally a little bit of partly cloudy. Couldn't really see it on the cam. And really can't even see it here, honestly. As you look all across the area, we don't see a single cloud on our radar at all. The only thing we got here in the United States entirely is this big old system up, Hurricane Dorian. That said, just made landfall earlier today in the Carolinas. So that is going to be passing through in that area. So we're remaining here. We're just going to stay hot, stay without any clouds. I know we could use really a little bit of shade to get into some cooler temperatures, but staying hot, as I said, record degrees possibly for a football game, as we'll get into our headlines for that. Staying hot, football school record coming up your way, and then a new segment for today is this day in weather history, but I'm going to send it off to Jake. Looking out throughout that clear southeast.
Yeah, Evan, you're definitely right on that. What we're seeing in Tallahassee is a pretty consistent trend across the entirety of the southeast. And the further west you go, the warmer it gets. Shreveport cracking the century mark, 100 degrees under sunny skies over there. Kind of a sneak peek of what we're going to be seeing here over our weekend. Towards Florida, a little bit more cloud cover, and temperatures a little bit lower, around 90 degrees, but still quite a hot one across the entirety of the region. That humidity, we actually saw a dew point as low as 42 degrees in Atlanta pretty recently, with an air temperature up in the middle 90s. So some really freakishly dry air in parts of northern Georgia. We'll call it a dry air damming sort of a scenario out in those parts. Near the Gulf, a little more humid, 73-degree dew point in New Orleans, and 76 down towards Tampa. So still feeling nice and hot there when you factor in the heat and humidity. Those current heat index values getting as high as 107 if you look towards New Orleans, that being the warmest spot on our map in terms of a feels-like temperature. 103 over towards Tampa, but Atlanta with an air temp of 94 actually feels 4 degrees colder than what that temperature is based on such a low humidity value out there. So pretty remarkable stuff going on in northern Georgia and some of those drier portions of the southeast. And a lot of that's due to northwesterly flow that's really been persistent across the region for the last couple of days here in the wake of Hurricane Dorian, which has now really exited the region and starting to move east of those mid-Atlantic states. A little bit of onshore flow coming in parts of central and southern Florida, helping to keep that humidity up there a little bit. But the further interior you go, you really see this northwesterly and northerly wind being the dominant feature here. And again, on the satellite and radar, not a cloud in the sky for a big chunk of the southeast. If you look off towards the north and east, of course, you see Hurricane Dorian swirling in the Atlantic, right over the Gulf Stream there. Front stalling out over central Florida. We're seeing a couple of showers if you go just to the north of Lake Okeechobee, but otherwise staying very dry throughout the entirety of the southeast. And we're not really going to be seeing much of a change as we work through the weekend here. Pretty moderate moisture values if you really bring that up through the depth of the atmosphere here. Not too much support there for big-time shower and thunderstorm activity, so that's sunshine, and limited cloudiness will really be sticking around for the next 24 hours as you're seeing here. Save the exception of maybe just south of Interstate 4 in the peninsula peninsula of Florida, and maybe a little bit of shower action up towards central and Alabama and Georgia as we work through the day tomorrow with some of that afternoon heating. But again, nothing really widespread. As for tonight, 68 degrees for that low in Tallahassee, 72 up towards Atlanta. Lows pretty much hanging around the 70-degree point, except for the really immediate coastal areas like New Orleans and Miami once again. And then tomorrow, what we were seeing in Shreveport, that 100-degree value today, that's going to be really replicated for pretty much the entirety of the region south of Tennessee here. 99 Montgomery, 99 Tallahassee. Actually, I think we're forecasting 100 there for us in Tally. 92 down towards Tampa. So pretty much a similar trend across the entire southeast, and that's going to be holding true through the rest of the weekend here. But now we'll go over to Tyler to look at our local weather.
Thanks, Jake. Here locally, today our high was 94 degrees, fairly close to our record of 97. Each day we keep getting close to breaking our record, but we can't quite get there just yet. Our low of 69, not really that close to the record, but this has been the first time we've been in the 60s in quite a while, so that's always a good thing. Sun's still shining beautiful over Doak Campbell Stadium right now, but it doesn't exactly feel great outside. 91 degrees, but it still feels very, very hot outside. We're still chugging along without any rain here in Tallahassee. Do have winds coming out of the north at 8 miles per hour. For the rest of the Big Bend region, Tallahassee at 91 degrees and St. Mark's getting up to 94 degrees. Actually, these coastal areas are actually a lot hotter than the more interior areas like Thomasville at 90 degrees. It's because the northerly wind is making it cooler for these more northern cities, but as we get towards the coastline, not so much, as that sea breeze isn't really getting to the coast. Looking at our dew points, this kind of shows that the sea breeze isn't helping us get any moisture at all. Tallahassee has a dew point of 63, St. Mark's at 64. Fairly low dew points as we're starting to head towards the fall. Not going to see as much of those dew points in the mid to upper 70s anymore. Perry at a dew point of 65 degrees right now. And our current heat index actually doesn't look very different from our actual temperatures. The heat index shows how it actually feels outside. Tallahassee feels like 92 degrees. That's how hot it was outside. So not much difference, and really same case for all of the Big Bend. Thomasville feels like 89. Our hot spot is St. Mark's at 96 degrees. And winds, as I alluded to before, coming out of the north, fairly moderate wind speeds. Tallahassee, you have winds coming at 8 miles per hour towards the coastline, and Apalachicola actually getting up to 13 miles per hour. So fairly breezy towards the coastline, even though we don't have the breeze coming from the Gulf. And looking at our satellite and radar, not really seeing much in the way of rain at all. Very clear skies, and we're going to see the same thing for the next 24 hours. It's going to be very, very dry. So our football game here tomorrow in Tallahassee, we're going to want to make sure that you stay hydrated if you head out there. To our northwest, just a little bit of rain in Alabama, but not even going to make it close to us. For tonight, going to get down into the mid to upper 60s for much of the Big Bend region. Those coastal areas are going to stay around 70, 71 degrees. St. Mark's going to be at 71. As we move eastward, also going to be in the 60s. And then for tomorrow, going to be much like today, going to be in the mid to upper 90s for everyone. As we get towards those coastal regions, going to be a little bit cooler. Carabel at 92 degrees. For the whole week ahead, though, going to be very hot tomorrow and Sunday at 100 degrees. And then as we get through the rest of the week, just going to cool down a little bit. Maybe see some cloud coverage and rain chances start to spike back up again, but still going to be fairly dry for the most part. Now I'm going to send things off to the desk with Michael and Jake.
Yeah, thanks, Tom. You can probably tell already it's going to be pretty hot tomorrow. And with the home game in Doak Campbell Stadium tomorrow, how hot is it going to be, and will it break any records?
Yeah, so Chris was actually kind of teasing this at the opening desk here, and I, in my boredom yesterday, for 45 minutes, I dug up some serious stat work. And tomorrow, if we get to 99 degrees for our high, it will actually end up being the hottest home game day in the history, 73 years of Florida State football.
Yeah, and in games where it's only in the low 90s, you're already baking there like a little casserole. So
for those of you that were there on Saturday against Boise, for reference, the high was 93. I think that was pretty brutal out there.
That was like, what?
Let's crank it up another couple of notches, right?
Most of the crowd was basically gone by halftime, and so we're talking at least 6 degrees warmer than that.
Yeah, those the lines for even the water fountains. We were sitting up at the top of the stadium. Those were pretty insane.
Yeah.
The 4 hottest games that have currently transpired are a couple of 98-degree games that took place back in 1990 and 1991. So back in the Bowden years, of course, where every year the team was going 10-1. Plenty, very fun time there. And we had a couple of 96-degree games as well. The most recent being September 5th, 2015, where FSU took on Texas State.
Yeah.
But for those of you that may recall, there was actually a lightning delay in that game, and we didn't kick off until about 9 o'clock. So a 5 o'clock kickoff is actually a little bit more of a big deal here relative to some of those other ones as well.
Yeah, exactly. Well, like the hottest part of the day during this time of year is usually around 4 o'clock. So especially before halftime, that's when it's going to be really brutal. And then once the sun starts to set after halftime, it might be a little bit better.
Yeah. Not to mention the tailgating, obviously. We're going to be spending a lot of time out there, so make sure you're drinking plenty of water as you're out there tailgating, because it's going to be a grind of a day out there. You know, you're going to be outside for 3 hours at the game as well, in addition to all that time beforehand where you're in there in the peak of the afternoon sun. So keep that in mind as you plan your day tomorrow. And of course, plenty of sunscreen too.
Yeah.
That cloud cover is not really going to be much of a factor.
Exactly. We always say bring multiple bottles of water. I'm going to change that to bring multiple gallons of water.
Fair recommendation, I'd say, especially if you had a large group to accommodate. So.
Exactly. It's going to be that hot. And honestly, it's not only here in Tallahassee where it's going to be very hot, but a lot of the nation is looking pretty hot. And we're going to take a look at that national picture right about now. You'll start to see, yes, Death Valley is always baking like a casserole, as we say, at 115 degrees yesterday. But then if you go out towards Maine, not that bad, 31 degrees at the Estacourt station up in Maine. So again, you can get the extremes here in the U.S. even in the month of September. Now, with our temperatures across the rest of the nation, you can notice the very hot conditions across Dallas, Atlanta, Memphis. Now, Memphis and Atlanta are both at 93 degrees, but they feel different because you have a different moisture content in the air. Memphis has more moisture, while Atlanta has less moisture, and you notice the difference in the heat index in just a few seconds when we go to that. Meanwhile, the northern part of the country, we had a cold front move through early in the week. It's brought in some cooler air from Canada, so temperatures in the 60s and 70s up there. Now again, in Atlanta and Memphis, look at the difference in your dew points. It's almost a 30-degree difference in your dew points, with Memphis at 72 and Atlanta at 49. So those heat indices are going to be much different, you'll see in a few seconds. But the reason why we have those lower dew points in the southeast, and especially across the northern tier of the country, we had that northerly flow. And part of that is due to the cold front moving through early in the week, and part of that is also because of Dorian. Since you're on the backside of Dorian, you get that northerly flow on the west side, so that brings in the drier air from the north. Satellite radar does show you that we have another cold front moving through. That's why you notice some cooler conditions up towards the northern part of the country. We had that secondary cold front that did bring in the drier air, not necessarily cooler air for the southeast. And then you can also see Dorian starting to move off into the Atlantic and going to affect the Canadian Maritimes as we go into the weekend. We also have some severe weather and some thunderstorm activity up towards the northwest, and so we're going to zoom into that. Just a marginal risk for a lot of the Intermountain West today, especially in northern Wyoming, southern Montana, and into southern and central Idaho. And we do have some severe thunderstorm warnings, especially in southern Idaho and in the Denver metro region, with some flash flood warnings also in red, given that these thunderstorms are slow moving as well. Given the mountainous terrain and the slow-moving thunderstorm, we do have a flash flood watch in central Idaho until tomorrow, until actually today, in the next 2 hours. That's going to expire at 6 o'clock Mountain Time. Now, Dorian is finally moving away from the U.S. It's been a long 2 weeks for a lot of the people at the National Hurricane Center. Honestly, should thank them for the work that they do this time of year. But again, Dorian will move off into Canada, the Canadian Maritimes, into Newfoundland and the Halifax region as a Category 2 hurricane. It's going to strengthen once again just because it's going up that Gulf Stream and also get some influence from that trough steering it. We still have some tropical storm warnings and some hurricane warnings for the coastal regions in North Carolina, and these tropical storm warnings for the Cape Cod region as well as in Maine. It's been 8 years since they've had tropical storm warnings up there. We also have some flood alerts in the mid-Atlantic as well. But let's look at tomorrow's forecast, and you'll see it is going to be very, very toasty. Might just want to bake a panini on the sidewalk in a lot of the southern places tomorrow. So that's how hot it's going to be. We're going to go now to Chris with the back of the Tallahassee look at our weather.
Thank you, Michael. All right, I'm moving into our Tallahassee temperatures. So going in, it's upper 90s for most of the region, very sunny near Tallahassee. We'll get some cloud covers the further south you go, but it's very warm this week. As you can see, these lower dew points is making it the heat feel not as bad as it could be, but it's still a dry heat. You still want to make sure you stay hydrated. Going to the heat index, as you can see, despite it being a natural lower temperature in Tampa than it is right now in Tallahassee, it will feel a lot hotter. That's because they have a much higher dew point, and that's going to make the heat feel a lot more muggy. With the wind speed and directions, we're having some as we saw before, there's some northerly flow going in that's keeping us in Pensacola dry. And you have this sea breeze coming off that's going to actually raise the dew points in the Tampa, central and South Florida area. Going to our Miami 3-day forecast. 90 degrees Saturday, 88 Sunday, 87 Monday with a slight chance of storms. Tampa Bay's 3-day forecast. 92, 92, 93 with another slight chance of storms. Orlando's 3-day, 95, 95, and not a third day of 95, it's 94, and you're going to have a little bit of storms. As you're going to see, there's a bit of storms in South and Central Florida. Daytona Beach, 92, 92, 91. Sunny for the next 3 days. All right, I'm hitting the wrong button. Sorry. Pensacola 3-day forecast, we got 90, 96, 96, and 93. Your lows are going to be in the upper 70s for Sunday and Monday, but it's only going to be 73 on Saturday. Over the next 24 hours, you can see over most of Florida, it's going to be dry, clear skies for the next 24 hours. You will see some storms down here in South Florida, and that's where you're seeing these slight chances of storms for tonight for Fort Myers. So in tonight's forecast, we are mostly in the lower 70s. You will see some parts reach the upper 70s and even 82 degrees in Key West. And tomorrow's forecast, we're going to be upper 90s through most of Tallahassee. Most of Florida, not Tallahassee, my bad. 90 with a 99 Tallahassee. You got some storms in Fort Myers and West Palm Beach. For now, I'm going to send it off to the desk.
Thanks, Chris. And right here at the desk, we're actually going to talk about how Hurricane Dorian, yes, we're still talking about Hurricane Dorian, is actually going to make some impacts in Maine starting tomorrow.
It's absolutely ridiculous, honestly. Hurricane Dorian, it's still not done, honestly. It's passed through the Bahamas, it's passed through North Carolina now, and it's still trekking on its way. We're still talking about the damage recoveries for those areas, and we certainly send our prayers out as the FSU weather team. But we definitely forward to and in preparation for Hurricane Dorian's impacts on Maine and the rest of the areas.
Yeah, so right now it's actually forecasted to start making its way towards Nova Scotia as a hurricane, but Maine is also there along the way. Washington and Hancock County, they're actually under a tropical storm warning. These are two counties that are on the southeastern coastline of Maine. Really, the governor of Maine just wants to make sure that everyone takes the proper precautions considering all the damage that Dorian has already done. He wants to make sure that everyone knows just how much destruction the storm can cause, even if it doesn't make direct landfall.
Absolutely. Honestly, just even the Outer Banks and the storm surge itself is enough to really capture attention and to be able to prepare for those kind of certain things, even though it's not making, as you said, direct impact in Maine. But it's definitely making direct impact in Nova Scotia as a hurricane. Not a tropical storm, as a hurricane. So it's definitely something to look out for.
Yeah, this thing still hasn't completely weakened into a tropical storm yet. Here in Maine, we're expecting to get 30 miles per hour on the coastal regions, and it's just very rare to see these kind of things happen to Maine, so that's just something we wanted to bring up. Maine, not really seeing hurricanes usually, but might actually see one. But we're going to send things off to our local two. Actually covered our Florida segment right before this. We're going to dive into two more local segments, though.
Anyway, okay, well, over the past 24 hours, you see temperatures started low at lower 70s for the beginning of the day as they started to skyrocket as the day went on, peaking off at 93, 94 degrees. Or into a rainfall almanac. Today, we observed no rainfall. Normally, we get a little bit. We haven't gotten any this month, but we don't get too much in September, and throughout the year, we are a little low. Going on to our current conditions. It is currently 91 degrees, partly cloudy, winds 8 miles an hour coming out of the north. Going to our local temperature, you have you're at 90 degrees for most of the northern Tallahassee area. As you move close to further south you go, it gets warmer with 98 degrees, with the exception of Apalachicola at 88. Our dew points are very dry. It's 63 Tallahassee, mid-60s for most of the area. A little bit drier in Apalachicola, which will raise its heat index to a little bit higher with respect to the increase to the rest of the area. The rest of the area, the heat index is going to be relatively similar to the main temperatures, and that's because we have very dry heat. Wind speed, we have winds coming out of the north, northwest. That's what's keeping us dry and our dew points low. Going to our satellite and radar, as you can see, not a cloud in sight. There's a little bit of ground scatter over by Valdosta. As we move out into the national satellite and radar, where we have this main frontal system. This is going to be giving us more dry air. It's not necessarily going to be cooling us off next week, but more dry weather is to come. For a marine forecast, 91 degrees, winds roughly 5 to 10 knots, a little bit choppy. Looking forward to the week ahead. As I said, Saturday game day. It's going to be very hot. You definitely want to be drinking a lot of water. Stay hydrated. It's going to be brutal out there, but have fun at the game. Sunday is once again another hot day. Nearly 100 degrees for both days. Monday, it's going to be not as hot. Roughly 97. It's going to be around the upper 90s for the rest of the week, with storm chances on Tuesday and Wednesday. And for now, I'm going to send it off to Michael, who's going to do another local segment.
Yeah, if you wanted more local weather, here we go. Another segment of basically heat. And we're going to continue that. And you see very nice conditions over Doak Campbell Stadium. Not even cloud in the sky. The airport thinks there are some clouds in the sky, but it is 91 degrees, cooler than it was yesterday. And that north wind is actually giving in that dry air, so it doesn't feel as bad. We're going to say the dry heat a lot for the next few days because it's not that bad outside compared to what it was over the summer months. The temperatures across the rest of the region, pretty nice overall. Mid to low to mid 90s, 91 in Tallahassee, 94 in Caribou and St. Mark's, and the only place not in the 90s is Apalachicola at 88 degrees. A little bit of that sea breeze moving inland over the coastal regions at Apalachicola. You notice it with a little higher dew point over there at 66 in Apalachicola, but the rest of the North Florida, South Georgia regions, dew points are pretty low in the low 60s, which is really nice for this time of year, kind of showing that little transition into fall, and those dew points will also drop. So again, even though it's in the 90s, it doesn't feel that bad like it did over June, July, and August because of these lower dew points. And so our famous muggy meter shows you that it's in terms of your mugginess, but it's not bad to what we've been used to over the last 3 months. Actually feels a little bit nice compared to the torture we had to experience over the last 3 months. But satellite and radar is clear. We had that cold front due to Dorian honestly bringing in the drier northerly winds in our region, and so that's why it's awesome to head up to the soccer game tonight. 7 p.m. in about 30 minutes, 88 degrees under sunny skies, gradually cooling down into the low 80s at 82 degrees at 9 p.m. with just some scattered clouds in the sky. Now tomorrow for the ULM game, again, this could be the hottest FSU football game ever, with the game time temp at kickoff at 100 degrees, and with the heat index, a little bit of the moisture in the air, feels like 104. But then once we get into halftime, it does cool down, 94. Not that bad outside. It feels pretty nice. And then once we get into 9 o'clock, once the game ends at around the fourth quarter, should be at 86 degrees with that heat index around 90. So again, be hydrated, wear lots of sunscreen, reapply that sunscreen. Just remember that, and you'll be good to go. Now for Sunday, for the next FSU soccer game against Sanford, very hot out there. Over triple digits for the entire game. They might actually have to do hydration breaks given how hot it is. So be prepared for that. And let's take a look at that 7-day. You'll notice how after the very, very hot weekend, moisture starts to return, so our temperatures lower down just a bit into the mid-90s. Not as hot. Might have some rain chances due to that extra moisture on Tuesday and Wednesday before dry air moves in for the end of the week. Let's send it back to the desk to talk about how do you toast a panini in this conditions?
I'm not really sure about that one, Michael.
I don't know.
What we actually want to talk about, I'll let Evan take this one in because this was his idea for the show.
It's for me, but today's weather. We have a weather history event. We just started this segment new for FSU Weather for us. But back in 1840, it's when the first official observation was taken back in Canada, back at the University of Toronto. 1840. I personally wonder what instruments they used there.
Yeah, I'm not really sure.
To take their observations way back in time.
Yeah, because meteorology, relatively new science, so even back in 1840, that's when they were kicking things off. Not really sure they were using, but members of the British Royal Artillery, those were the people that took those measurements back on September 6, 1840.
Man, and then back in 1972, we got Southern California actually saw their first tropical cyclone in over 30 years, since 1939, but cyclones in California, that's something we definitely don't deal with too often,
Yeah,
even nowadays. So
even the one they got hit by, Tropical Depression Hyacinth, it was only a tropical depression,
Did
so
you say
not,
that
not 100% sure,
Yeah.
but that's okay. So they don't really get hit by strong hurricanes. It was a tropical depression that hit them.
Mm-hmm.
So back on September 6, 1972, those were the two main weather events that happened back then.
That wasn't too bad, but hopefully we definitely wish the best tomorrow for all of our people trying to stay out there and stay on for the game, but definitely keep on hydrated with those 100-degree temperatures out there.
Yep, the main story tomorrow is our FSU football game against Louisiana Monroe. I know last week I got super sunburnt, so this time I'll make sure to put on at least 5 different types of sunblock, or maybe 5 layers. That's a better way to put it, because I do not want to get sunburnt
It'll
again.
be sunburn for a good cause. Hopefully they win tomorrow. So hopefully you can follow us on Twitter at FSU Weather.
And also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/FSU Weather.
And then you can watch us live on YouTube right now.
Yep, Mondays through Fridays, 6 to 6:30. We're always streaming live on YouTube. Also, you can follow us on Instagram at FSU Weather. We'll be posting lots of pictures there as well. But for tonight, that's all. I'm student meteorologist Tyler Sherrod.
I'm student meteorologist Evan Thomas, and have a great weekend.